Okay, let's really dive into this. We're sort of time traveling here, so I want you to, close your eyes for a second.
Huh.
Picture this. It's 1347 AD.
Right.
It's dark, probably cold. You're in this drafty stone cottage deep in rural Yorkshire.
Hmm.
You're lying on a, well, scratchy straw mattress next to your husband. Maybe you reach for his hand under this rough wool blanket, just trying to steal a quiet moment.
And that moment, it lasts maybe half a second, tops.
Yeah.
Because then you hear it, that wet cough from your mother-in-law. She's sleeping, what, 3 feet away on her own pallet?
3 feet. Wow.
And you've got, say, two kids rustling at your feet. And then the detail that really jumps out from the sources, there's this grunting, pregnant sow
A pig
in the house.
settled right in the corner near the hearth, softly grunting.
Okay, wait, a pregnant sow. That's not just about the smell, is it? It's utility, warmth.
Utility, warmth, constant noise, constant company. Yes.
Yes.
It sounds utterly exhausting, doesn't it? Completely. And this vivid picture, it really sets up our whole deep dive today, which is about intimacy in a world where privacy?
Well, our modern idea of privacy just didn't exist.
Exactly. The whole concept of a private moment, as we understand it, would have been completely alien to someone in the 14th century, especially a peasant.
Right.
That single room, it was everything. Kitchen, workshop, dining hall, bedroom,
All in one.
all in one for maybe 8, 10 people, spanning 3 generations. Sometimes servants, too.
So our mission today is to try and figure out how, in this constant, hubbub of humanity, married couples actually manage to keep any kind of emotional or physical bond going.
And conceive children, which was crucial.
Crucial, yeah.
Yeah.
How did they sustain that relationship, the absolute bedrock of their survival? They must have developed some pretty specialized ways of feeding.
Oh, absolutely. And if we look first at just the physical space,
Hmm.
the architecture itself basically forced everyone together.
Right. In a typical peasant cottage, the hearth was the center of everything. Only source of heat, only source of light. So everyone gravitated there, day and night, no escaping it.
And even if you were wealthier, had a bit more space, real privacy was still pretty rare, wasn't it?
Very rare. You might have a solar, sort of private chamber,
Okay.
but the sources, archaeological evidence, show these rooms often weren't that private. Maybe you had multiple beds in there.
So why build a solar if your aunt and cousin are still sleeping in it?
Well, partly status, safety maybe.
Hmm.
But yeah, privacy wasn't the main driver. Even in grand manor houses, these private rooms might just have beds separated by like a hanking tapestry or a thin wooden screen.
A visual barrier, but you could hear everything.
Everything. And the bed itself, that wasn't about luxury. It was pure survival engineering.
How so?
Built high off the ground. Why? To get away from the cold drafts on the floor.
Mm.
And, maybe more importantly, the rodents.
Ugh. Rats and mice.
Constant companions.
Yeah.
And the mattress. Just a sack. Filled with straw, maybe rags if you were lucky.
Hmm.
Not exactly
Yeah,
comfortable.
Okay, so you've got this crushing lack of space, uncomfortable beds, vermin, and then layer on top the hygiene barrier.
Yeah, that's a big one. Trying to find intimacy when, well, people might not have properly washed for weeks, months even.
Seriously.
Full baths were a huge undertaking. Lots of effort, expensive. You wore the same rough clothes day and night. Insects were everywhere.
So just touching someone, it wasn't simple.
Not simple at all. A real logistical challenge, even before you get to anything else.
It just sounds so draining. And then on top of all that physical stuff, you had the moral calendar, the church.
Right. Whole other layer of constraint. It was like a double whammy.
So the church's view, sex was okay in marriage, but really only for procreation.
Theoretically, yes. Procreation was the justification.
Yeah.
And it demanded, modesty, discretion.
Yeah.
Which was already hard enough given the living situation.
But the rules made it even harder. All
Yeah.
the times you couldn't have relations.
Oh, it was relentless. You had mandatory abstinence periods. Advent, Lent. Weeks around major holidays. But then, even in a normal week, no relations allowed on Wednesdays.
Why Wednesday?
In honor of Christ's betrayal,
Hmm.
no relations on Fridays, the crucifixion. And no relations on Sundays, the resurrection.
Wow. Okay, so Wednesday, Friday, Sunday.
Yeah,
That's 3 days gone right there.
exactly. Factor that in, and you're left with only 4 days a week where it was even religiously okay. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
That's not many.
And that's before you add other things.
Like pregnancy.
Right. Once a woman was visibly pregnant, relations were often supposed to stop.
Okay.
And then after childbirth, another strict 40-day purification period. No relations then either.
So if you add up the holy days, the weekly forbidden days, pregnancy, postpartum, How many days were actually left in a year?
Well, some historians estimate a typical couple might only have had, say, 60 to 80 days a year where intimacy was truly permissible without risking, mortal sin in the eyes of the church.
60 to 80 days. That is a stunningly small window.
It really is. And every single one of those potentially permissible moments had to be navigated right under the noses of everyone else.
Which brings us to how they actually did it. This required, well, an art of subtlety, didn't it? A kind of secret language.
Absolutely. A complex, mostly silent system of coded communication.
Yeah.
They had to signal their intentions without alerting, mom sleeping 3 feet away, or the kids, or a servant.
So what did that look like? How did they communicate?
We're talking tiny things. Micro communications, almost entirely nonverbal. Like maybe a touch that lingers just a fraction of a second too long when passing a cup of ale.
Okay.
Or a specific look across the hearth. Meaningful, but quick. It had to be instantly readable to the partner, but totally invisible to everyone else.
That takes practice and trust.
Huge amounts of trust. For couples who are slightly better off, maybe had duties outside the house, there might be verbal codes.
Oh.
A source mentions things like whispering about needing to check the animals in the barn.
Plausible deniability.
Exactly. Or, if they had land, get to check the grain stores. Seemingly boring chores, but understood as cover for maybe 5-10 minutes of privacy.
Stolen moments.
Very stolen. And even then, you had the timing challenge. The seasons, the demands of survival, they dictated everything.
Right. Like winter. Everyone's huddled together for warmth, which you'd think might help.
But undressing was dangerous. It was freezing cold. So yes, you had shared body heat in bed, a practical necessity. But intimacy often happened through layers of clothing. Not exactly romantic.
Not ideal, no. What about spring?
Spring offered a bit more possibility. Warmer weather, longer days. You
Yeah.
could genuinely have a reason to go out to the fields.
Check the crops, gather herbs.
Exactly. Under that pretense, you might find some solitude. But it was risky. You could bump into neighbors. Or worse, bandits.
True. So indoors, what was your main tool for creating that little bubble of intimacy?
Probably the single most important thing psychologically. The bed curtain.
Yes. You mentioned those. Often made of heavy fabric.
Heavy fabric. Sometimes the most expensive item in the entire household, even for peasants or middling families.
Wow. So they spent money not on, say, a better mattress, but on a curtain?
It shows how much they valued that illusion of separation. It was a critical psychological barrier. It muffled sound just a bit. But crucially, it blocked sight lines.
Creating a kind of cocoon.
Exactly. A cocoon of relative intimacy in that incredibly crowded space. It gave them visual silence, even if not actual silence.
Which must have been vital because kids often slept in the same room until they were practically teenagers, right?
Well into adolescence, yes. So parents became masters of, well, minimal movement and maximum silence.
Huh. I bet.
And they relied heavily on what you might call the children's willful ignorance. The kids probably knew, but they learned not to see, not to hear. An unspoken agreement.
That unspoken agreement, it sort of connects to the idea that intimacy wasn't just about the physical act, right? It was forged in other ways, too.
Absolutely. In the daily grind and the shared work, the practical care, that's where the deeper bonds were often cemented.
Let's talk about one figure who seems key here, but often overlooked. The midwife.
Yes. The midwife. She was often the gatekeeper of reproductive knowledge, operating completely outside the official male-dominated church structures.
So women went to her in secret.
Often, yes. For advice on timing intercourse, maybe positions to aid conception, possibly even rudimentary contraception or abortifacients, though that was dangerous territory.
Wow.
It was this underground network of feminine wisdom, helping couples navigate the church's rules, manage family size. It was quiet defiance, really. Female solidarity, crucial for their private lives.
So beyond that secret knowledge, the everyday relationship, it was built more on shared tasks.
Very much so, especially around the hearth, the kitchen area. That was the hub of household intimacy. Working together, side by side, preparing food, managing the chores. It creates this deep, often wordless synchronicity.
And acts of tender service. You mentioned things that seem purely practical to us.
Like grooming, removing lice from hair.
Oh, lovely.
Hey, it was necessary. Treating small cuts, applying herbal remedies. These were acts of care, yes, but also legitimate reasons for close, gentle physical contact. Right there, in front of everyone.
Okay, I see. It's reframing those everyday actions.
Exactly. And food. Food was definitely a love language.
Oh, so not like fancy dinners, obviously.
No. It was about scarcity.
Yeah.
A wife saving the best bits of meat, the fatty parts, the marrow for her husband.
The high-calorie stuff.
Yes, or a husband making sure his wife got the last bit of precious salt, or a rare treat like honey. Public acts, but with private meaning, showing care, showing dependence.
And spiritual life played a role, too.
It did. Evening prayers, often led by the head of the household, were one of the few times a couple could legitimately kneel close together, sharing that small space, that moment of unity, without raising eyebrows.
That makes sense. What about letting off steam? Any acceptable ways to relax the rule?
Well, there was alcohol, ale, beer, often safer than the water,
Yeah.
and definitely more available. Big events like weddings, harvest festivals. These were occasions where people drank, rules relaxed a bit. It could offer couples a chance to loosen their usual tight control, maybe share a dance or a more open touch.
A bit of temporary freedom. Were there other ways to get away?
Temporary absences were vital pressure releases. The sources mentioned shepherds taking flocks to distant pastures for weeks,
Okay, so the husband might be gone.
or young men traveling to market. It created these brief, essential windows of solitude, or at least reduced crowding back home.
But the big one, for a couple seeking real time away together, was pilgrimage, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A pilgrimage could mean weeks, even months, on the road, traveling to a holy site.
And that meant,
Freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom from the constant oversight of family, neighbors, the village priest. It was just the two of them, or maybe a small group. They faced shared hardships, shared spiritual experiences. It could profoundly strengthen their bond.
Yeah.
A total reset for their private life, ironically found in public travel.
it's fascinating how they found ways. We should probably touch on the power dynamics here, though. It wasn't exactly equal, was it?
No, legally, husbands held significant authority. But, interestingly, even the church's own canon law, while focused on procreation, did put some limits. It spoke of marital demands needing to be within reasonable frequency.
Reasonable frequency. So some check, maybe, against constant demands.
A small one, perhaps, the sort of theological safeguard, however effective it was in practice.
And you also see strange practices trying to manage desire within these constraints, like bundling.
Yes, bundling. It highlights the gymnastics involved. This was sometimes done during courtship. The couple might sleep in the same bed, but fully
Clothed.
clothed, sometimes even with a wooden board placed between them or their legs literally tied or wrapped separately.
Seriously.
To allow closeness, conversation, shared warmth maybe, but prevent actual intercourse. Managing desire within strict moral lines, it shows the incredible ingenuity or desperation required.
It really does. Now, you mentioned 1347 at the start. Something huge was about to happen then, wasn't it?
Yes, the Black Death. Arriving in Europe right around then, 1347, lasting several devastating years.
And that changed everything.
Fundamentally, the massive loss of life, maybe a third to half the population in some areas, it completely altered the social and economic landscape.
How did that affect families and this issue of privacy?
Well, tragically, for the survivors, there was suddenly more space, more land, fewer people competing for resources. That intense, crushing physical proximity we've been talking about, it began to ease for many surviving families.
So ironically, this catastrophe inadvertently created more potential for privacy.
In a way, yes. A grim side effect. It shifted the dynamics in countless ways.
It makes you think about how they perceived time itself, not by the clock, like us.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Their sense of time was much more organic, dictated by sunrise, sunset, the seasons, the church bells, and the work cycles. That church bell ringing for vespers, evening prayer. It wasn't just a religious call, it was a signal. The day's labor was ending, night was approaching. It organically marked the time when intimacy might possibly become feasible, woven into the rhythm of life.
So pulling all this together, what's the big takeaway? Their intimacy wasn't like our modern romantic ideal, was it?
Not at all. Not the grand passion of literature, generally speaking. It seems to have been more of a quiet, steady flame.
Forged in what?
Forged in mutual dependence, sheer ingenuity, and a daily commitment lived out right in front of everyone. A practical partnership,
Yeah.
but with deep undercurrents.
Their connection wasn't measured in hours alone then?
No.
Oh.
More like in the gentle pressure of fingers intertwined under a rough blanket, in sharing breath in the cold night air, in that unspoken understanding, that glance across the room that said, this moment, right now, however brief, however witnessed by your mother or the pig, it's ours.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If real intimacy isn't just about the physical space you have, but about the intentional space you create. You know, that coded glance, that shared look over the kids' heads.
Yeah.
Maybe we still do that, But what does our constant chase for more and more private, isolated space actually cost us in the modern world?
That's a fascinating question. When the whole world, via screen, can barge into our most private moments anyway, what are the unspoken codes that keep our relationships going today?
Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for unpacking all that.
My pleasure. It's a world away, but strangely relevant.